Right now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome inside the Fan Cave. This is the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Bob Pompeani with you at 412-575-2600. Chris Mueller joins at 93.7 The Fan, PM team. And Pirates got a win tonight, but the big story over there, of course, Chris, was what we saw out in the outfield where a man dropped over the Clemente wall 21 feet to the warning track. And the latest we have, he's a 30-year-old man in critical condition, and we certainly wish him all the best. And I've never seen anything like that in person at a game, and that happened today, and it was just stunning and very tragic.
Yeah, I would just say my best wishes for him. I hope he pulls through and survives one, and then hopefully without any permanent damage. And my thoughts go out to his loved ones, friends. I think one of his friends climbed down and jumped down a little bit to try to help. So just a horrifying scene at PNC Park tonight, and I just hope for the best for everybody involved, obviously.
Yeah, that's what we will do. We'll pray for him, again, in critical condition. That's all we have on it. As far as the game itself, the Pirates bounced back. They had a 2-0 lead. They gave it away on a sloppy inning in the fifth. You know, Carmen Mlodzinski's a pitcher who I think, Chris, is a good arm to have in your bullpen, but I've always looked at him as a bullpen. I think they've tried to stretch him out. He had 4 really good innings, and then he got into a little bit of a trouble in the fifth. And then, Barecki came in and, they gave up 3 runs, so they fall behind. But he's a good arm, and eventually I think you're going to see Bubba Chandler up here. And we got some interesting news today concerning Jared Jones, that he may be ahead of his schedule. So at some point you can have these guys together, and at that point it would be a formidable pitching staff, but they need hitting, and they still don't have enough of it.
Formidable on paper. Mlodzinski in a perfect world is probably a long man in the bullpen, or actually maybe you use him for an inning, maybe 2, but he's a weapon, and I think you see guys like that maybe get a little bit overexposed. Even if they have the stuff to be a starter, it's maybe the ability to command that stuff. And usually that third time, or even most of the way, through the second time through the order, you might start to see some cracks show. But you said it best. There's still just so little offense. Where would they be, Bob, if O'Neal Cruz wasn't finally figuring it out this year and turning into what looks like one of the best offensive players in the National League? As a matter of fact, where would they be if Andrew McCutchen still hadn't found the fountain of youth and was looking like a guy who can still get on base and hit for a little bit of doubles power every once in a while? I think it's a pretty big indictment on Ben Cherington that we're in the 6th year of his tenure, and they just have been completely and totally unable to find and develop bats on their own. Henry Davis, they trade for Joey Bart, so that's obviously one bright spot, but the list of players that Ben Cherington, position players who are good hitters that Cherington has acquired or drafted and developed, how many is it? 1? None? Yeah. I mean, seriously, it's a dramatically bad state of affairs.
Nick Gonzalez is potentially some.
Oh, my God. When we're pining, Bob, for Nick Gonzalez, when Derek Shelton,
I'm just saying,
when people
you asked for how many.
No, I know.
That's not the only one I can think of.
He's a 250 hitter, though. That's my point. We're acting like him being out of the lineup is Lou Gehrig missing from the middle of this Pirates lineup. I mean, he is probably only going to be an average major league hitter at his best. I just think it's a glaring weakness and a stain on Cherington's resume with the Pirates that he cannot find and develop. His people cannot develop any sort of hitting whatsoever. Termod Johnson, by the way, is supposed to be their big position prospect, Bob. I got bad news for people. He's 21, yes. He's in Altoona. He looks like kind of just a guy. 790 OPS. He doesn't look like somebody that's a franchise-changing player that you took with the 4th overall pick.
No, and when they did it was 17 years old, and you thought by 21 he'd be up here. That's 4 years. We've seen that happen with other teams. It's just not happened. And yeah, they do not. And after 6 years, it's really inexcusable. You've had a lot of time to get this right, and we see other teams doing it. And if you don't do that, then you have to spend to compensate for your lack of development. But when you're in this sort of a predicament, you have to have drafting and development. And man, Chris, they've had their share of top-end picks. And, Henry Davis is the one that comes to mind, but they've had other guys, in the top 3 rounds. They're all considered guys who were supposed to do something at some point, but nobody's done it. So that's where they are right now, and so they improved to 12-19. Real quick, I want to get your thoughts on what the Ravens did today. Tyler Linderbaum, I know he's probably still in their sights to get a long-term extension, but it's kind of rare to see a guy not get a fifth-year option. It would have been worth $23 million. He's a two-time Pro Bowl center. A little strange, or you just think that's their intent is still to get it done, but this makes it a contract year for him at the same time.
My guess is they just are intending to get a deal done with this guy that is going to be less than that amount annually, and they've convinced the player that he's going to get more overall guaranteed money as a result of trying to do this. Otherwise, it's a complete head-scratcher. I mean, isn't usually the reason you draft any player in the first round in part because you get to pick up that fifth-year option, and then they're going to get paid, and then that's kind of, especially with quarterbacks, it's a hedge, and you say, well, hey, you know, if we think he's good, but we're not sure. We've got this one more year to play with at a pretty premium price, but the player will be happy. I just have to assume that the Ravens intend to sign this guy to a long-term deal that guarantees him a lot more money over a period of years, because he really is one of the best centers in the league. And that would be the height of lunacy if they made him go into this year and they said, hey, prove it, buddy. We want to see how good you really are.
Right. Now, normally when you don't pick it up, that's what you're asking him to do, prove it. He's already proven it, so it's kind of a strange one. We need to take a break. 412-575-2600 is the number to call. On Twitter, it's at KDPomp, at Chris Mueller PGH. We'll take those calls next right here on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. This is our Xfinity Mobile tweet of the night from the Pirates, and you see the final score. They win 4-3. They'd gotten clobbered in their last 3 games, but they get a win tonight over the first-place Chicago Cubs. Also tonight, Washington Capitals. Ovechkin got another goal, and they wrap up their series against Montreal. So the Capitals move on. They'll take on the Hurricanes in Final Four of the Eastern Conference, and then Florida eliminates Tampa. That's a little bit of a surprise for me, but they did it tonight, 6-3, and that means that the Florida Panthers will take on the winner of Toronto-Ottawa, and Toronto did it again. They're at home ice. They were up 3-0 in this series against Ottawa. Ottawa is a dangerous team, in my view. Ottawa wins game 4, and then they go to Toronto and win last night, and now game 6 back to Ottawa. If it gets to a game 7, who are you picking in that one, Chris?
Let's see. Ottawa playing with a relative amount of house money, or the team that lives with crushing failure year after year, every year since 1967. Man, I got to think about this one for a minute, Bob. I really do. This is a toughie. You know what? I'll actually set all that up to then make a joke and say I think the Maple Leafs would win, but
they got to win. I think
game
6 they got to win. You don't want, if you get to a game 7, man, we've seen weird things happen in game 7, so you don't want that.
I know. I'm trying to think though. I think until recently there was games or series that got to game 7, the team that had blown the 3-0 lead still rallied to win. But yes, I mean the crushing weight of history would be a lot for Toronto to deal with. The other story, I mean, there in the Eastern Conference playoffs is I think a lot of people had the Capitals earmarked as a team that could go down in flames.
I was one of them. I'm sorry about that. I was.
I'm not even calling you out. I did know that you were one of the people who thought that, but I'm not calling you out specifically. But, man, they just keep chugging along. That is, you know what's the lesson there, too? Carberry, their coach. Now, there's a guy that they brought in to oversee like an on-the-fly but a very committed rebuild. Hey, we're not going to get loyal to certain guys. We're going to let people walk, or we're going to trade players. They bring in an up-and-comer coach, and, man, he has given them a shot of energy, kind of, freshness to that team. And look at what they are doing with this. I mean, what a legacy builder this would be for Ovechkin if they go all the way. I say all that to say, hey, Penguins, don't screw this up. I think coaching Sidney Crosby for the last 3 to 4 years of his career would be pretty attractive to an up-and-coming coach. Commit to somebody who hasn't had an NHL head coaching job before and give them 3 to 4 years to actually start figuring things out. Just my 2 cents.
And that's why I like David Carl from Denver. There are other guys, too, or up-and-coming assistants on
Jay
teams.
Pandolfo, Marco Sturm, both guys who coach respectively BU and an AHL team.
Assistant coach for the Washington Capitals, too. Last name Love, I forget his first name, but he's a guy who has a lot of respect around the league. Anyway, with that in mind, let's go to our number 1 Cochrane Go One Better caller of the night. It happens to be on the Penguins. That would be Chuck in Uniontown. Hello, Chuck.
First of all, thank you. The best of that individual at PNC Park. Hope and prayers always. That. But on a Penguins coach, I would like, there's someone that you don't know is good, but I would like to see someone who emphasizes some defense, because I think, we know the goaltending needs to be shored up, and still that, there's too many people getting away with too many things in front of the Penguins' net, and I would hope it's somebody that's skilled toward defense. Whoever the Penguins hire. The only other thing I want to ask: do you fellas have an NBA pick this year?
Yeah, I had Oklahoma City versus Cleveland, with Oklahoma City winning it all. And Cleveland made it look so easy.
If David Stern were still alive running the NBA, do you know how many picks Oklahoma City has in the next several years still? Like, they got everybody's first-round picks, and they're already great.
But they hit on them.
David Stern would be going around in the back rooms making sure that market 29 in the league was not the best team in the league. He'd have refs, making sure they were blowing suspect whistles. He would not stand for this. That would be an awesome finals in terms of quality of play. And I think Adam Silver's head would explode if you had Cleveland and Oklahoma City as your markets. Chuck has an interesting little point there, Bob, that I wanted to expound on briefly with the Penguins and get your 2 cents. With this team, you and I both like David Carl from Denver. There's other coaching candidates. Carl taking his name out of the Blackhawks job makes it more interesting, and the timing's kind of coincidental. Chuck says, hey, give me somebody that can actually coach defense. What do we know about this franchise? Even the best coaches, even the ones like Sullivan, who I think is the best coach for the franchise that they've ever had. Bowman's the best coach ever to coach with this franchise. You get the distinction there. These guys all coach defense by just coaching great offense. And I have a very hard time, since it's been kind of woven into the DNA of the Penguins for as long as I've been alive, and probably longer, that they're an offensive team, that you're going to bring in a coach here who is really able to actually get a team to play like sound system-based defensive hockey. Remember when Kevin Constantine tried to do that? Jaromir Jagr basically led a revolt and got him shown the door. I think you're going to be hard-pressed to find a coach who comes in here and does that. I don't even know if Fenway Sports Group and Kyle Dubas want a coach who's all about defense.
Yeah, maybe not, but Carl stretches a system that I like. The guy I was thinking of was Mitch Love down there in Washington. He's a similar kind of guy, preaching what Carberry is teaching. I don't think they necessarily sacrifice offense. They take advantage of it on the power play, and that's what has to happen. And speaking of that, by the way, Toronto's 0 for the last 30 in power play opportunities in elimination games. So that's crazy. Let's go out to Martin in Plum Township. What's up, Martin?
Hey, fellas. I'm calling about Howard, the 6th-round pick. Kind of like him. I think it's going to be a value pick. And I'm thinking like Mike Sullivan, like he had to go. I'm thinking Mike Tomlin might have to go too. They've had a lot of drama in the locker room since Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown were caught with marijuana. I think that was them that were caught with that.
Well, it was LeGarrette Blount was the one with Le'Veon, and that was prior to
Talk
the
about
preseason
nominative
game.
determinism there, Bob. LeGarrette Blount caught with marijuana. That's like
a blunt crime right there.
That's a lawyer, last name attorney. Bill Attorney, I'm your lawyer.
But, bottom line there is I think Howard's a good value pick too. And that doesn't mean he can't become something better than a value pick, which is to say probably high-end, good backup for a lot of years, which you can create a big financial fortune for yourself in that role. But he has these things, and Ben Roethlisberger even talked about it on his Football and podcast, that he likes. And he says if he plays his cards smart, and he strikes me as a very smart kid who would respect people ahead of him. But that doesn't mean he's not going to do his best to try to usurp them and take, the eventually job away from whoever it may be. But I like that pick. I do.
I mean, people like it right now because it's not going to come with any of the attendant drama that we know is going to follow Shedeur Sanders to Cleveland and be an omnipresent story. And I think people also like the athletic ceiling and the physical frame being a lot more appealing, in at least in theory, than Sanders. I did find Ben's comments kind of interesting. He wasn't wrong, by the way. He really wasn't, about how backup quarterbacks are supposed to try to support the starter. Nothing, curiously, from Ben on how starting quarterbacks are supposed to support a potential backup who gets drafted in the 3rd round. Just a notation on my part.
Here's an interesting score. Minnesota Timberwolves are up on LA Lakers at this point by 7 points. What would you think if the Lakers got eliminated in the 1st round after acquiring Luka Doncic? And I say that because I still think it was a great trade for them, and he will be their guy moving forward, so they can build around him once LeBron is done, and who knows when that'll be. He's still playing pretty well at his age, but I'm surprised that it would be, and this would be a 5-game series win if Minnesota closes this out.
Yeah, and they would do it as the 6th seed. I think it would be pretty disappointing. You've got Luka. LeBron is still averaging like 25, 8, and 8 as a 40-year-old, and you can't make it happen. I mean, I think the Lakers should have cause to be very disappointed. Austin Reeves is a very good player. I mean, if you look down the rosters, I would just think that they have more firepower than Anthony Edwards, Naz Reid, and the rest of that Timberwolves team. So I know Redick's going to get a decent amount of rope to try to put his stamp on that franchise, but it would be a pretty disappointing end given the Doncic trade to that season for them. So I wouldn't say warning bells, but man, you'd think that they would get more than a 5-game exit if they, in fact, do go out like this.
And a team I thought would win the series over Golden State was Houston. I think they won big tonight. They were up the last I checked by like 30 points. 131-115. They did win, as Steve Banco tells me in my ear. The magic of television right here. So that means they're going back to Golden State for a Game 6. Now, they put, they're good at home, and Steph Curry, if he goes off, anything can happen. But Houston's a good team, and if they should win that game going back to Game 7, I think the Warriors may be in trouble too.
I would love to see it happen to Draymond Green, who I am very sick of. He's going to ride Steph Curry's coattails to way more accolades and recognition for his career than he probably should. So I am absolutely rooting for the Rockets because they are fresh, they are fun, and it would just be very funny to see Draymond Green and Jimmy Butler, who I've kind of soured on in the last couple of years too, go down in flames.
And I've become a big fan of Şengün. I think that guy he missed it could have been a game-winning shot the other day, but he is a good, confident guy who can play in the middle. Anyway, we're due for a break. I'm over here. We'll take it. 412-575-2600. Back with more of the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call right here on KDKA+. Josh Taylor's at the anchor desk tonight, working on KDK News at 11 o'clock. Josh, what do you got?
Bob, here's what we're working on. A scary scene at PNC Park during tonight's Pirates game when a fan fell more than 20 feet onto the field. We have the latest from the North Shore. Plus, Governor Josh Shapiro was in our region tonight, how his administration is planning to help clean up after yesterday's storms. And tomorrow is a KDKA First Alert Weather Day. Meteorologist Ray Petlin will break down what you can expect and when. All that and more coming up on KDKA-TV News at 11. Hope to see you there.
All right, Josh, thanks very much. Chris, tonight in the Pirate game, I thought we saw one of the better throws you see from center field. Pete Crow Armstrong, who, if you look at his metrics defensively, he has some of the best numbers out there. He made a throw that I really thought was going to end up being a double play. I'm a little surprised they sent Joey Bart there knowing, and they respect that guy's arm, but it was close at the play. They got the right call eventually.
Well, imagine that, Bob. You trade one of your high-profile players and get a guy in return, and he's a 2-win player already this year within a couple of years of playing for your franchise. I didn't even know that was legal. Wow.
Yeah. Well, they did it, and that's why the Cubs are going well, plus Kyle Tucker. That's going to do it. For Chris Mueller, I'm Bob Pompeani. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again tomorrow, 10:35 start time.